नमस्कार कार्यक्रम कम्युनिटी कोर्नरस्टोनमा यहाँलाई स्वागत छ। मेरो नाम सुरेश अनि आज पनि हामीले कोर्नरस्टोनको यो आजको एपिसोडमा विभिन्न नेपाली कम्युनिटीलाई जानकारी दिनको निम्ति विभिन्न जानकारी दिने क्रममा आज हामी यहाँ उपस्थित भएका छौँ र आज हामी विशेष गरी न्युयोर्क सिटीको कन्ट्रोलर अफिसमा के भइरहेको छ त्यहाँको विषयमा त्यहाँबाट के गर्दैछन् र हाम्रो साथमा आज हुनुहुन्छ कन्ट्रोलर ब्राड ल्यान्डर अनि उहाँले चाहिँ के गरिरहनु भएको छ यो आर्थिक वर्षमा र यो फिस्कल इयरको कुराहरूदेखि लिएर हामीले उहाँले विभिन्न जुन अब न्युयोर्कमा भइरहेका विभिन्न कार्यक्रमहरू के सम्बन्धी भइरहेका छन् अडिटका कुराहरू भयो ती सबै कुरालाई हामी समावेश गर्नेछौँ र कन्ट्रोलर ब्राड ल्यान्डरसँग आजको कुराकानी हामी यहाँलाई राख्दैछौँ र केही अब जानकारी पक्कै पनि तपाईँले आजको कार्यक्रमबाट हामी पाउने आशा हामीले गरेका छौँ। Good afternoon, Comptroller Lander. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time, and I'm sure that our viewers is going to get a lot of information from today's episode. So let's just get started with the first question that I wanted to ask. Like after the COVID-19 and a lot of other factors, there was like a lot of financial issues, a lot of things going on. So from the Comptroller Office, what is happening for this fiscal year, like in order to just make sure that all the people are getting good information about the finance resources and everything?
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being here. It's an honor to be with you. The Nepali community is such an important part of New York City, brings such rich diversity, hardworking people, delicious food, great culture. It's an honor. We just got to celebrate Diwali and Tihar together in Southeast Queens. And it's an honor to have you here. So
thank you so much.
We're focused first and foremost on the things that matter in the pocketbooks of New Yorkers. So that means housing, and the housing prices are through the roof. And what can the city do to make sure that people could find affordable housing? So that was a big effort we fought for in the city budget this year. And I'm pleased that we were able to win $2 billion to invest in affordable homes for New Yorkers. And just yesterday, the City Council voted on the City of Yes program to allow the building of new homes in many of our neighborhoods. And one of those programs is actually pushed mostly by a South Asian group, Chaya. In terms of the fiscal priorities, first we think about what are New Yorkers' fiscal priorities. So the cost of housing, the cost of transit, the cost of childcare. And we're working on all those things in our office, winning more money for affordable housing, winning investments in the subways, and looking to see how we could expand childcare options so hardworking New Yorkers can deal with the crushing cost of living that hits everyone, but obviously especially hits our immigrant communities.
So when you talk about the housing, especially like housing prices kind of out of the roof right now, right? So what policies especially do you support to make housing more affordable for especially like immigrant community, like Nepali community, right? Yeah. So what kind of policies are you supporting?
Yeah. So really three big things here. Mm-hmm. First, we do need to build more housing for people. We just don't have enough housing in New York City. So yesterday, the City Council approved something called the City of Yes, to allow building more housing in everyone's neighborhoods. And one of the pieces of that was pushed by a South Asian organization, Chaya CDC, that works on housing for immigrant homeowners, especially Nepali and Indian and Pakistani and Bangladeshi New Yorkers. And they have this idea that if you have a home and you have a little garage in the backyard, you could be able to turn that into a housing unit. Mm-hmm. Or if you can make your basement unit safe and legal. So that's called an accessory dwelling unit, or ADU. And the council took action yesterday to make that possible in more neighborhoods. And I hope that'll mean more homes for Nepalis and everyone else. So that's one. Two is just money. The city has to put more money toward making housing affordable. And in the city budget last year, we helped win $2 billion for the city to invest in building new affordable housing. And then the third thing is, the city promised that we would make sure that any tenant who was facing eviction had a lawyer. Mm-hmm. So you don't get thrown out of your home without a lawyer. When you provide a lawyer, evictions go down 40%, and people are able to negotiate an agreement. The city promised to provide those lawyers, but we're failing to provide them. And my office is working to make sure we get back to providing that attorney to everyone, because you shouldn't get thrown out of your home and become homeless without somebody looking out for you.
Right. So about the homelessness, New York City, we do see like a lot of homeless issues around in New York City still. Like, and then even if we go to the immigrant community, this is the number of homeless people are increasing. So what's your plan to address that issue? And on top of that, like a lot of like immigrants who are dealing with the language barrier issues as well, and they're having problems getting a house. So
Yes.
what are you doing, or what's your office doing to address those issues?
Yeah, we work very aggressively on language access.
Mhm.
One thing New York is the greatest immigrant city in the world. My great grandparents came here speaking Yiddish. People are coming now speaking Spanish or Chinese or Nepali or any other language, and we have to make sure government's responsive to them. So we audit city agencies to make sure they're speaking in everyone's languages. We have a hotline and a great form on our website in every language. So you can report, I tried to get help with housing and it wasn't available in my language. So I hope people will do that. Go to the Comptroller's website if you have a problem, and you can use it in Nepalese and in other languages. And then we'll follow up and make sure that agency is providing the service that's needed in that language. We did an audit of Human Resources Administration, which provides those lawyers I mentioned, and many others. So that's a big deal. On homelessness, I guess two parts here. First, of course, the answer to homelessness is housing. What people need is a home they can afford. And I mentioned we're pushing on funding, we're pushing on legal services, we're pushing on letting more housing get built so we have enough housing and people aren't homeless. Then a lot of people who are sleeping on the streets right now are people with severe mental illness. And the city has to do more. That really has doubled since before the pandemic, where we have people with mental illness sleeping on the subway or the street. And of course, that's awful for them, but sometimes also if they get in a psychotic episode, they could be a danger to their neighbors. So we need a plan, and my office is working to put one together to end street homelessness of severely mentally ill people, to make sure they're off the street and all New Yorkers are safe.
Right. Controller Lander, I will just touch the mental health issue a little bit later. I just wanted to ask a quick question about mainly with the experience living with Nepali community and coming from Nepal. Like a lot of Nepali community immigrants right now, they start able to buy a house. They're working for a long time and now they have some money. So especially for those first time new buyers, right? How can as a controller, how do you think we should do which will create the opportunities for them to access to those resources where they can buy their houses, their dream home in
this is
New York.
I guess maybe it's the Nepali dream. It's also the American dream. That's our dream. And I tell this story. My kids are now 21 and 25, and they came home not too long ago with tattoos. And my wife and I are not really tattoo people, so we were a little suspicious. But what they got was my son got the numbers of our house, just like they're on. Nice. And my daughter had drawn a picture of our stoop. Our row house has been their identity, their safety. So yes, that's what our families are looking for, whether they're Nepali or Jewish or anything else. And we have to make it more possible. It's harder than it used to be to buy a home in New York City. So here's a few things we can do. First, I mentioned Chaya CDC, and I would urge your viewers to look them up because they focus on homeownership opportunities for South Asian New Yorkers. And I think people might get some help from them. There's down payment assistance programs if you've got a good job, but you don't have quite enough money saved up. I mentioned these opportunity to maybe fix up a basement or a garage. Maybe you can rent that out and then you can buy a home you wouldn't have been able to buy otherwise, because there's a little more rental income coming in from that extra unit. So that's a good strategy. And then the city needs to also help make sure more home ownership is getting built. A lot of the new housing that goes up is rentals. A developer builds a big rental building, but the city used to help make sure that home ownership housing got built, whether that was Co-op City or Penn South or Electchester in Queens. And we could be doing that again if we're going to make it so that bigger buildings get built. Let's make them with homeownership opportunities. There's a lot of co-ops in Queens. We could have a lot more of that. And that would enable many more families to be able to buy a home.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So let's talk about the mental health issues that you just mentioned earlier, that there are a lot of not only the New Yorkers, like those who recently immigrated and due to the COVID-19 pandemic and all of the different financial crisis and a lot of different things kind of created this a stress amongst this immigrant family,
Yes.
which became the issue where they ended up in the street. So that situation, how can we address, or what your office doing to address those homelessness issues because of the mental health?
Yeah, and this is across the board. I mean, mental
Right.
health became an issue, I think, that got elevated in the pandemic for everyone. And if you combine that with what the smartphones are doing to young people, and so the worst place is where people are sleeping on the street and are mentally ill, and then they may cycle from the subway to the street to a hospital to Rikers, but then right back again, getting worse and worse, and then maybe a danger. Like just this last week, we saw a mentally ill person, a homeless person, stab 3 New Yorkers and kill 2 of them. So that's the first place to start. We're proposing a strategy that's called Housing First, where you link some housing supports like housing vouchers and social services and help people get off the street into a unit and then take their medication, see a clinician. And that program works 70 to 90% of the time. So that's one big thing that we can do. We used to have a lot of homeless veterans sleeping on the street. We basically ended street homelessness in New York City, and we could end street homelessness for severely mentally ill people, and that would be such a big step forward. But there's other steps we can take too for our kids. It's long past time to ban cell phones in schools because our kids, like me too, I mean, I'm a little addicted to my smartphone, but hopefully my brain is a little more formed. But our young people get addicted to theirs. We could just say during school hours,
No.
can't be on those phones. And then add more after-school programs that provide arts and sports and cultural programs that help our kids develop in a healthy way. I know the Nepali community has so many good traditions of dance and literature and things that are beautiful. And the more we can get our young people engaged in those kinds of programs. So yes, you have to learn your math and your reading and the things you have to learn in school. But if we can add more of the opportunities in after school and childcare that provide the beautiful opportunities, I think we could help with the mental health of our kids as well.
Thank you so much. And Comptroller Lander, so we talked about COVID-19 and the COVID-19 brought on a lot of financial crisis in the different areas, like even the small business owners as well, right? And most of the immigrants, they do not have a big businesses. They have a small, maybe the family-owned business,
Yeah.
right? Very small businesses, and they really struggle during the pandemic. And the struggle is not over yet. A few of them, they are already shut down, a few of them still struggling, right? So from your end, what are the steps you're taking to help to those small business owners from Nepali community, or let's say overall all the immigrant community in New York?
We did an audit of the Department of Small Business Services loan and grant programs of a program. Some programs they had for pandemic relief. And what we found was there wasn't enough outreach to make sure that immigrant business owners and business owners in the outer boroughs found out about the grant and loan programs. We set up these programs, but then they mostly went to businesses in Manhattan, English speaking. So we did this audit, and then the Department of Small Business Services agreed to do more outreach, to do it in more languages, to make sure it gets into the Bronx, it gets into Queens, because we have a lot of programs, but if immigrant business owners don't find out about them, they're not doing any good.
Exactly. So, what do you think? Like, because a lot of like people or businesses in Queens area, like or you mentioned as well that a lot of like English speakers are getting those opportunities, but not the like one who immigrated here and don't speak English. So, in that situation, what could be the best step that we could be
Yeah, a
doing?
few things. Well, language access obviously is one.
Oh,
If the
exactly,
programs, if there's information about the programs isn't in your language, how are you going to learn about it?
exactly.
It's also important to support uh, outreach organizations, nonprofit organizations, and community media organizations to get the word out. It's great if you have a chamber of commerce, but if they don't speak the languages and do the outreach, then that's no good. So you might need, I mentioned organizations that we have like Chaya or Adhikar or business serving organizations. So we could give more contracts to groups that represent diverse communities,
Hmm.
and then they do the outreach, go knock on that. Because if you're having a small business, you're not looking on the web to see what programs the government has. You're busy every day doing the dry cleaning or making the food or whatever, the providing the services. So we need people to go to those business owners in their language and say, hey, here's some programs we have. Which ones might be helpful to you? And similarly, we have a commitment from the city to advertise in community and ethnic media,
Hmm.
newspapers and TV and radio, but a lot of the agencies are not meeting those obligations. We looked at this and saw that even the health department, which most of all needs to get information to everyone, isn't doing enough of their advertising in ethnic and community media. So that's something that we'll be following up to make sure we push on and get more of.
Thank you so much. So going back to again the financial stuff, right? So a lot of new immigrants who are working, technically, if we see that look at the data, the job opportunities are not going down. It's definitely going up, but somehow, like because of the lot of different factors, including language barriers, again here, right? A lot of people are not like getting the job opportunities, or let's say like proper job opportunities. So in this case, how does your office is creating job opportunities for like immigrant community, like Nepali community?
Yeah. No, this is a real issue. There are a lot of jobs, but many of them don't pay enough to pay the rent or pay the bills.
For
So
sure.
a lot of the jobs that have been created since the pandemic are in healthcare or home care. And we need healthcare and home care, but if those jobs don't pay enough to help you pay the rent, to pay for your own childcare, then that's people wind up really frustrated. So we do a lot of economic analysis. I mean, my office is not we don't run job training or job creation programs. We analyze the programs that are out there, take a look at the economy, and then make
Hmm.
recommendations for things the city can do, to lift the pay of workers. When I was in the city council, I was very proud to pass the legislation that created minimum pay requirements for Uber and Lyft drivers, for deliveristas, folks who are being paid way below the minimum wage and now are actually getting a decent pay. And I'll keep looking for opportunities to make sure we have an economy that's creating not just jobs, but good jobs.
Thank you. So another thing about the immigrant community, since like they come here, they work, they do small businesses, so they're busy on their own life. But when it comes to the like to reach their voice to the policymakers or go to the like higher ups, a lot of times we are like behind. Like even in my personal own experience as an immigrant, we feel that our voice is not being heard by the policymakers that often, right? So how do you think we can solve that issue and make sure that we include them or policymakers include them and hear their voice, our voices?
Yeah. Well, first, it's great. Here you are. It's nice to be talking to you. So give a big credit to your, local media. That's a big, important part of making sure elected officials are talking to your community. There's a lot of other ways as well. Like we try in our office, we do celebrations
Mhm.
every year. So, and we decided to do our Diwali and Tihar and Chandi Bandi Chordiva celebrations out in the community. So last year we did it in Jackson Heights. This year we went out to Southeast Queens, where there's a big Indo-Caribbean community. And then we honored people from the community. So this year we were pleased to honor Padma Linka Magar, from an organization that teaches the Nepalese to young people and helps build bridges, both helping people learn English and helping young people learn Nepalese so they stay true to their culture. And then we do a lot of work with organizations like Adhikar, who represent a lot of workers, make sure that they know their rights, with Chaya to make sure homeowners get their opportunities. So we're always looking to build those bridges. One of my favorite things we just did in this office, I don't know if anyone from Nepal was involved on it, but we audit all the city agencies. And one of the big city agencies is NYCHA, the New York City Housing Authority. And we thought, well, who knows what's going on at NYCHA? Are NYCHA residents. And so we created a NYCHA resident audit committee and brought people into our office to meet with our auditors. And then we listened to what they said and we did an audit that they decided upon. So I agree with you. We have to find ways to break down the barriers between New Yorkers and their elected officials. And that's a lot of work. That means caring about language access. It means working with the community, talking to TV and radio and newspapers and community organizations. And I would just urge you to keep pushing all of us to be accountable to New Yorkers.
So talking about, again, like connecting with the people community, right? How do you think, how do you work with the Nepali community, or in future, do you have any plan to work with like a Nepali community leaders to listen to their voice, their concerns, or their issues?
Yes. I mean, this is a big part of what my Public Affairs Bureau does. It says, okay, it's great that we're looking at the budget and we're looking at the contracts and we're auditing the agencies. And we're managing the pension funds. That's the job of the Comptroller's office. And that's most of our work every day, and our office is not always the most public facing because the pension funds are a lot of investments and the budget is billions of dollars and the audits are looking at the work orders and we make sure the city's annual financial report is published and the bonds. So that's a lot of work that people are like, I don't know what that is. Meanwhile, our Public Affairs Bureau is going out to communities and saying to leaders in neighborhoods, what's on your mind? What are the big issues you're facing? And when people say, the housing is too expensive, we need to be able to buy homes, or, I need childcare so I can go to work, then we can look at those programs and make them work better. And so we're always looking to build bridges in communities. As I mentioned, we do a lot of different events. Some I just come, like I've gone to a few great events where in Western Queens, where the community was hosting something and I, am invited and show up. And then we do other events as well, like the Diwali event I just mentioned. But we're always looking for more people to meet. We had last year at our Diwali event, the Gobind Dance Center did a performance, and that was new for me to get to see them. We had some great dance performances as well at this one we just did where we honored Padma. We had a round table that we did with immigrant worker organizing groups. And I think Adhikar has been at that roundtable every time. We do like a quarterly meeting because we help ensure that some workers' rights are protected. We have this great dashboard we put up that looks at employer violations of workers' rights. And then we work on that with community members like Adhikar and others.
Awesome. And we definitely can see that our Nepali community would love to see you more often in a different events. So next question that I have is, how do you ensure immigrant communities like the Nepali community will be protected when it comes to a lot of budget cuts are going on, right? So how will you make sure that the essential services in neighbors, especially in the immigrants community, again, Nepali community, how I'll make sure that they get that
let's talk about the elephant in the room. This is a scary time. And,
right.
The election of Donald Trump presents grave risks for New York and for many New Yorkers, and especially for immigrant New Yorkers. Some of that is the budget, which I'll get to in a minute, but of course some of that is just the possibility of deportation and raids. And you might think you're safe because you are a citizen or you have a green card or papers, but Donald Trump is not going to care. He's already said that if there's children who are citizens because they were born here, but they have parents who were undocumented, he doesn't care if you have DACA or TPS. This is a very grave risk. And unfortunately, you probably remember like after 9/11, when there were all those attacks on the Sikh community, which didn't have anything to not that it was okay to be targeting Muslims at that time, but so once anti-immigrant sentiment gets going, it really is a problem. So I promise to just stand up and be there for immigrant New Yorkers if deportation, forces from ICE come in and do workplace raids. I hope people will let us know, and we'll be on the ground trying to stand up. But the budget is also a big risk. Last time when Donald Trump was president, he proposed to cut money to health and hospitals, which is where so many immigrants go to get health care, to cut money for housing to New York City, to cut money for our schools and even our school lunch program that our kids need to eat. So we just put out a report called Protecting New York City that documents all the risks, including the budget risks of the Trump administration, and brought people together to say, what can we do to push back? Maybe there are some programs where we can reach out to red states because their kids need to eat lunch also. So
Exactly.
how can we team up with people to prevent those cuts to education or to healthcare or to housing?
Awesome. So the last question that I have for you. So how do transparent budgeting practices help communities that often feel ignored, like especially when during the financial planning?
Yeah. I mean, people are mad right now. They feel frustrated that government isn't meeting their needs. It's not, the housing prices are going up. What is government doing about it? The people are sleeping on the street in front of my home. Can't we get them someplace to live? People don't feel safe in their neighborhoods. And when they feel that way, then they're angry that government isn't delivering. So a big part of what we have to do is be more honest and transparent with people. Show them the numbers, show them where their tax dollars that they're earning are being spent. So we do a lot of that work in the Comptroller's office. We have so many dashboards online. I mentioned that employer violations dashboard. We look at many different agencies. We track where the money is going. And when we see that it's being wasted, we do an audit and we call it out and say, hey, HPD, you can't give a $432 million contract to this company, DocGo, that just wastes the money. That's money New Yorkers need spent on their needs. So yes, I really agree that more transparency, especially about the budget and the finances of the city, is one critical part of making sure government is really working for hardworking families like the Nepali community, and like so many other New Yorkers.
Thank you so much, Comptroller Brad Lander. And today it was an honor to be here with you and getting a lot of information. I'm sure a lot of people got a lot of information from today's show.
Thank you very much. It really is an honor to be with you.
Thank you so much. Anything at the end of the show, anything you would like to...
How do I say thank you in Nepalese?
That is dhanyabad.
Dhanyabad.
Yes.
Yes. When I was in the city council, I represented a lot of Bangladeshis in Kensington.
Okay.
And also dhanyabad is
correct.
Thank you.
That's a little bit different, on how you say it, but the word is the same.
They say more donobad.
Yes.
And here in Nepalese, it's dhanyabad.
Yes, sir.
Dhanyabad.
Dhanyabad. Thank you so much. Any last words to our Nepali community you want to say before we wrap up the show?
Yeah, I mean, first I'll say dhanyabad to the Nepali community of New York City. It's not just that New York City, should be there for you. You are making our city richer, starting so many businesses, making our neighborhood safe, working hard in many different kinds of jobs, bringing a beautiful culture and tradition and hard work and food and dance. We're lucky to have your kids in our schools and your families in our city. So as the Chief Financial Officer, I want to say, dhanyabad, thank you for your work and what you bring here, and promise you that as New York City Comptroller, I have your back and will do everything I can to make New York a place that works for your families.
Thank you so much again. कार्यक्रम कम्युनिटी कोर्नरस्टोनमा आज हामीले न्युयोर्क सिटीका कन्ट्रोलर ब्राड ल्यान्डरसँग कुराकानी गऱ्यौँ। आजको कुराकानीमा हामीले विशेष गरी नेपाली कम्युनिटीको जुन विभिन्न अब हाउसिङको कुराहरूदेखि लिएर तपाईँको जब अपर्च्युनिटिजका कुराहरूदेखि लिएर विभिन्न अन्य विषयहरूमा कन्ट्रोलर अफिसले के गर्दैछ यस विषयमा हामीले आज कुराकानी गऱ्यौँ र कुराकानीबाट तपाईँले के जानकारी पाउनुभयो त्यो पक्कै पनि एकदमै मूल्यवान अवश्य पनि हुनेछ भन्ने हामीले अपेक्षा गरेका छौँ र कार्यक्रम कम्युनिटी कोर्नरस्टोनको अर्को एपिसोडमा हामी यस्तै विभिन्न विषयहरूलाई उठाउने प्रयास गर्दैछौँ। तपाईँकै समस्या अनि तपाईँलाई हामीले सोल्युसन त्यसको समाधान के हुन सक्छ त्यो हामी दिने प्रयास अर्को एपिसोडमा पनि गर्ने बाचा गर्दै आजको लागि भने बिदा चाहन्छौँ। नमस्कार।